know when the light comes on.
Would get us a few more years of tax back, which is a good thing if it passes. But we'll see.
It's a, you know, like I said, it's something, but it's all right. You know,
We're live now.
yeah, I'm still working on it.
Good deal. Good to hear.
Start working on Columbia,
Did find that
where
you
the
have,
corners are.
So they're starting on that first to do the 88 ramps.
Oh, okay.
That's what's happening.
All right.
an adult usually.
But they're gonna replace the whole water mains and everything?
Nope, we never got the
But
grant.
it
Really?
talks about.
Grant never came in.
Oh,
So they're gonna put a brand new perfect road over top of
yeah.
crappy water
And
main.
you're gonna be digging it up.
Because it's $2.4 million supposed to fix the water main. I think that's gonna be number 10 to talk about.
Yeah.
So the simple thing we need
yeah.
to do is go back
Disheartening.
and tweak this
Yeah,
ordinance.
you're gonna do all that.
to
They
include
put
a
a nice
definition
road
of
over it.
bars, Which
Like
the
putting a
model
Band-Aid on
ordinance had in it,
Amputation.
but it's not in
Well, the funny thing is we haven't had a
So
break in a
if
while,
we-
so what I'm worried about is
Well, when
when they start working on
bars
it.
to it. So it's a simple
They say
fix.
after winter when it comes to
We
thaw.
could have this ready for next
But
week.
we really didn't
don't
have
to wait
that
a
bad of
week
a
to
cold
pass it.
winter.
It wasn't,
Um,
yeah.
But
But
yes,
still, I
you
wonder,
you
you
have
know,
this
bad,
ordinance.
like they say, every
It's for
every
adult
time you
uses, but
re-
it's never
place a
gonna
piece
play
of
the
that
bars because it
pipe,
doesn't include bars.
you put a piece in there that'll hold the
But it
pressure.
needs to, in
Mm-hmm.
my
The
opinion.
water goes out from that
Breaks in another
break.
spot.
Yeah,
That's why there's 26 breaks
Yeah.
on that piece of crap.
exactly.
Pat, how are we doing?
I'm
All
a
right,
little-
enough
It's
said.
just been a day like that.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. It's been a bad day?
From the minute I walked in the door. it's just
Oh, I'm sorry to hear
one thing
that.
after another. One more after
Yeah. We didn't add any more to that. Did we add any more to that? Good, good. I'm glad to hear that. I mean, I want to make sure we get our turn at the barrel to end it.
I was
Hopefully not
just
today.
trying to get to your work all day. I get interrupted by all this, Jason.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, it's been a pretty good week and a half here.
We do have a new associate. He's actually covering Spring Valley for us.
Okay.
So I'm trying to put him in the area. I also wanted him to come tonight, so
Okay.
we'll go through these meetings.
Okay, so you might have a little swap here with it.
He's never able to come in person.
Gotcha.
And I wanted him to meet you.
That'd be good.
Because he really has done a lot of digging for me.
It's a crazy world.
On,
We're gonna
the
see.
property maintenance situation.
Okay, those are good ones. That first topic, I don't know how that's gonna go over today.
The adult use. So you have adult uses.
Yeah. Well, new to-
Include
It's just cool new. It's cool new. I haven't seen, I thought, oh, we do?
You do have one, which is better than we thought.
Okay.
Are we ready?
And this is under, is this land development code, was that under?
Call the Oglesby working meeting to order.
Albright,
Here.
Cullinan,
Here.
Curran.
Here.
Udis.
Here.
Rivera.
Here. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Public comments on agenda items only. Having none, we'll move on. Discussion on the Reisner lot and future plans. We have,
Say who put it on the agenda.
we had a resident, submit, his plans, his questions. Whether what we're gonna do with it. So I put it on there. Has the council come up with any ideas, to sell it for a, possible, what am I trying to say? A business, or, to build a parking lot.
Do we have any business leads? Let's start there.
Pardon?
Do we have any businesses that are actually gonna develop the site, or they're just thinking?
Well, they
about
would,
it?
they would have to, if we would, sell it for a business, it would have to go up, you know, there'd have to be a time frame that the building would be built and the business open. Can't just buy the lot and say, well, I'm gonna develop the thing and we're 5 years down the road with the lot.
That's what I was worried about, so, do we wanna put a shot clock on seeing if that happens, and if not, go with plan B, or?
I think that would be my preference, at least, if somebody wants to come in, and start a business on that site. I think maybe we could, make a deal. If nobody wants to, then the city is gonna have to decide what they're gonna do with it.
Which, I still think parking lot for that end of town personally, because hopefully those
Well,
empty buildings get filled eventually, so.
I agree.
I'm
We
looking at.
we need to do something, and that's we need to have, well, I know there's a parking problem down there.
Well, I know we talked about this a while ago about the parking. That's why we expanded the one opportunity for parking, and then they talked about parking down on the other side of town, on the other side of the street. Because it's a prime spot, I do think we should set like a time limit that we have for a business that would want to even approach us. And then if there was one that wanted to approach us about something, we'd obviously make a timeline for them to be operational before we'd sell anything. But if they don't, I mean, I don't want to keep that open 5-6 years without doing anything with the parking lot. So I think we should, I don't know, do we want to say till the end of summer? That's the longest we give to, and then we decide to make a decision from there?
I think the timeline should be shorter to get initial,
90 days?
yeah,
I'd be good with that.
that works.
Get it out there, people have, if there's a business that wants to develop, that doesn't give them 90 days to build it, but just 90
No,
days to
just come up with
contact
an
her.
idea, yeah.
And then if not, then we can make a decision from there, I think.
We can see if it's legitimate in 90 days kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on, discuss mold abatement at the Oglesby Police Department.
Yeah, Mayor, so there was a leak upstairs where Trident is. We think the leak has been fixed, but there's drywall damage in the ceiling, and I guess the whole thing is full of black mold up there. They've gotten one quote, and that came in at $2,640 to just get rid of the mold, and I don't know if that includes fixing the drywall or not. I'll have to look into it when I see the full quote. But I want them to get a second quote as well, so hopefully by next meeting, I will have some quotes for you guys to review and maybe act on it.
What we're looking for is to clean up that upstairs with the mold, the leak. Is the roof leaking?
I don't think so. It didn't sound like, what they think might be happening also is the age of that building, I guess there's some condensation on the pipes on the inside. So we'll have to see if that's causing a problem or not. I think once they get it all opened up, then they'll be able to have a better idea as to what they're dealing with.
Yeah. Until they open it, I don't know if they'll really know could be a pin-sized water leak for all we know, kind of thing, so.
Okay.
This would be a two-phase project. The first phase will be the mold abatement. The phase two will be the remodel of that area. So that's how I kind of want to do it.
Okay.
What do you think for a time frame for something like that?
Well, I think as far as the mold abatement, which I think is the most important thing right now, once we approve it next meeting, I'm hopeful that they'd be in there within that week following.
Okay.
Once we approve payment to them. That's my expectation, but we'll have to find out who we go with, and I'll come to the council with both companies that we use for the quotes as far as what their time frame is on remediating the problem.
Personally, I'm okay with seeing who the cheapest one is, going with it, because you're way under where our limit's at, I think, right? We're good
Is
to
the
go.
council okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. I do want to get a second quote just to keep them honest
Yeah.
with stuff
Oh,
like
yeah.
this, but if they're both in the same ballpark, we'll just take the lowest bid and move forward. All right. Thank you.
So to refer potential land development code modifications to the zoning board of appeals.
So if you look at the email I kind of gave everybody as an option there, there's about 40 pages of emails that have gone back and forth, and I summarized some of the discussions there instead of having to go through 40 pages of stuff. With all the stuff that's come out with that one property in particular and some things we've identified over the past couple years with how we do building codes and the permit process, I put the items in red that I recommend that we should give to the zoning board to potentially adopt. The other ones are things that we can do locally. Like, for example, the first one was collect the sidewalk escrow. Give credit to Commissioner Augubright. He's already enacted that part and made a solution. The city needs to keep a final version of the signed building permit on file, not just the application version. What was happening was, so the people would come in, they do a building application, permit application, and then the building inspector would go out and they'd make any modifications they'd have there on the site. The problem is that would stay with them, and then what we had on file here at City Hall was just the permitted one. So any changes that were made, we didn't have a record of. That was one issue. Another issue is a letter of occupancy issued in the winter months and items aren't to code yet because of time of year. A letter of compliance should be issued stating the other required yet to be done. Letter of compliance to be kept on file. That hasn't been done very well lately. Those are things that we can do locally. These are the 4 items that I'd recommend we'd send to the zoning board to take a look at. Adding a sidewalk requirement to the diagram on the building permit process. That's part of the land development code. Next thing, require homeowner or contractor to have either a spray paint line or some kind of marking of where the fence will actually be installed already in place when the building inspector arrives on site. In the past, we've had it to where they've discussed it, but there's nothing that's actually listed either on specifically or on the ground, so therefore it's hard to go back and say what was supposed to be done. Next item, modified land development code portion of side yard height on corner lots to be better represent the purpose of necessary sight lines for vehicular traffic. I'm not sure of what the best wording is. I thought we'd let the zoning board kind of come up with that. Possibly landing the or language to say something after the 4-foot see-through requirement. The last item is modified land development code where sidewalk requirements aren't required on internal cul-de-sacs, as this doesn't affect pedestrians traveling from one point in the city and the other. So those are the 4 items that we've discussed them at length at one point in time during our working meetings, but I figure if we send that to the zoning board, they can talk about it in higher detail.
Is that gonna address some of the problems that we got out
That
there
will,
today?
that will address some of the problems. As I said, some of the issues going forward, for example, Commissioner Augerbright's already solved one issue that I think will solve for the future. A couple of those items on there for sidewalk and yard things will solve some current problems that we have. So yes, like for example, I think there's at least 12 houses in the city that are in violation of the side yard fence height, for example,
They currently are,
currently.
so it's more enforcement now than what's in there, or
Well,
just right now?
Side yard, I think, is 4 foot, isn't it?
so yeah, what our thing says, if you have a corner lot, I don't have it in front of me right now, but if you have a corner lot, if you have any side yard, it's supposed to be 4 feet. Well, so the problem is that means either you have a 6 foot for the rest of your sides of your house, and then you have a 4 foot on one side. But if you do a 6 foot all the way around, you're technically in violation. And the reason that exists in there is because if you didn't want to have somebody have a side yard that goes all the way up to the corner and would block a sight line for driving. So nobody currently has that as a problem. So that's why I'd recommend that we have it to where you can leave that language in there. They could have a 4 foot height, or if you want to go with a 6 foot height, that has to be so many feet back from the corner.
But they have to adhere to the required.
Correct, and we have it, so the one house that came up with this, that's one of the things they cited, but there's technically like at least 12 houses in the city that are already in violation of this.
Okay.
And the same thing with the, we talked about this probably over a year ago, the sidewalk requirements. Some of the sidewalk requirements are still required on internal cul-de-sacs. And I think at the time, now granted, we have some new members on the council, so maybe there's different thought processes on that. But I think the thought process at the time was, if you have internal cul-de-sacs, does anybody really care about sidewalks internally to them?
Probably not.
But this is why I thought,
I don't live in a cul-de-sac, I don't know.
but I thought this would be a good topic for the zoning board to discuss and then come up with recommendations for us on.
Well, it would be a good topic, because we need to get it squared away.
And cul-de-sacs can start at the end of a street, guys. So you could have a street that's a half a block or 3/4 of a block long that dead ends into a cul-de-sac. Do you want the sidewalks on the street approaching the cul-de-sac and just not have them around the cul-de-sac?
Now we're really thinking, oh, boy.
Well, we're gonna have to define it somehow if we're gonna
Because the-
change it.
Because the problem is, we have a lot of these houses and sidewalk
Yeah.
problems. I mean, some of them are gonna get solved, hopefully, with the, what is that thing called? Safe Route to School program that we put in for, if they gets approved, we'll get some of those solved that way. Some of these will be solved by not having this requirement anymore. And then some of them, like the one house in particular that was clearly violation when the house was even built, you know, that's still gonna have to be a problem to get solved, obviously.
So Jason, I suspect that all the red ones that you wanna make the changes to in the building code are gonna require a publication and a hearing process before they can make those changes? I'll look
Yes.
at your
That I'm
code.
not sure. I know it's part of the land development code, so
Yeah.
probably.
So we're probably gonna have to set up a planning commission meeting and publish a summary of these 4 things you wanna do here.
So would that go to the zoning board of appeals, or would it go to the plan commission first?
I think probably to the planning commission, but I'll take a look and make a decision about that.
Do you need me to make a motion to that, to,
Well, it wouldn't hurt, I guess, that you wanna have these issues entertained by the appropriate planning commission zoning board so that we can start to move this issue forward.
correct? Okay.
So I'll entertain a motion and second to move this to the zoning and planning board.
I'll make a motion to refer potential land development code modifications to plan commission
I think so,
Second.
and/or zoning commission, Jason.
and/or
And
zoning
or.
commission.
Second.
Augubright.
Aye.
Coleman.
Aye.
Stern.
Aye.
Udis.
Aye.
Rivera.
Aye. Discussion and potential setting COVID protocol policy.
All right, I did have this back on here because I realized we've never really solved the problem. For those that might not be aware, about a month or so ago, we did take a vote on it, and I thought the vote had passed, because it passed 2-1. But apparently, in the city of Oglesby Commission form of government, you need 3 votes no matter what. So, now that we got a full board here, I thought it would be something to discuss at the very least. So I have in there the last one that we tried to pass. I do think maybe there's some things in there that don't really apply anymore. Stuff about the masks, stuff about temperature checks. Obviously, those aren't important. But the reason I wanted to bring it up is just to reiterate, and I know we talked about this, Pat, do you think this is something that we probably do need to talk about? Because if you remember, the mayor made an emergency call about authorizing people to not have, for payroll stuff. But technically, we didn't, so is that something that we can ignore this, or what do you think we need to do?
About that decision or about setting policies moving forward?
Well, I'd like to do it all, set policy moving forward and everything, but people might think differently about it. But if we don't do anything right now, where does that leave us with those employees that had non-charged sick days?
Well, I assume they've been paid already.
Yes.
I believe they have been.
So are you gonna go back and try to retrieve that pay from them?
That would be you,
Well,
Jason.
anything that we would do, we would have to negotiate with the 2 unions. That's a negotiable item.
I agree, and that's what I tried saying before. Now, granted, we didn't have a lot of people here, but I truly believe if we're gonna give something up like sick days for some type of illness or whatever, I believe we should negotiate that as a bargaining unit.
And that just wasn't done, Jason.
That was not done. And
But
again,
Technically, how does the contract work right now? If they're sick, they gotta burn their days, right? That's how the
Correct.
contract currently is
that,
working?
They
that's what,
don't, what we had, and let's
make-
go back and take a
sure
look
here.
between Christmas and New Year's, and that's when this hit us. We had a third of our employees that didn't have any sick leave. We had a fourth of them that only had a few days. In the interest to try to keep the city running, if you're sick, stay home, and we'll pay you. We kept the city functioning, we kept them running, we kept the lights on, we kept the streets cleared, and we lost one day at the clerical office. I thought it was the right decision at the time. Our people, you know, they earn their sick leave, they don't get it until after they've been in a year, and then the start of each fiscal year. You know, COVID also, if they contacted in the course of their employment, and it may be, they would have to prove it, or we would have to disprove that they didn't, that's a workman's comp case. Let's maybe step back. I don't know if this is something that we can talk about in closed session, or if we have to discuss it in open session. I'll do it either way.
Well, to answer your question, Tommy, the problem with this is the contract says that if somebody's sick and they're not here, they would use their sick days. But that's not what happened in this case. So that's why I'm trying to determine what should we do going forward. And I am perfectly fine with the, you know, what is it? General Patton has a famous quote, "A good plan today executed is better than a perfect plan tomorrow." And I think that applies here. I understand that if the mayor had to make a decision of what he thought was the best thing to do to keep the city safe, I'll never argue against that. My concern is the plan going forward. I don't want to have something that's out there that we didn't agree to.
I don't know when all this took place. During the first, I think it was more than a year into COVID, there was a federal program out there called the FFCRA. It's the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, where the federal government reimbursed employees that were sick with COVID.
This was after that, Terry.
This was after that,
This-
okay.
This was right at the beginning of this
Okay.
year.
So you guys did take advantage of that program when it was out there? Okay.
Probably very few employees back then that suffered from COVID, but it became a real pandemic.
I wish they
here.
would've continued that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, personally, Jason, I think it's gonna be difficult to go back and change what happened at the beginning of the year under Dom's emergency decision authority and ask those employees to cough back up that money somehow or take it out of future paychecks or something. I just don't know that that's a tenable solution to the problem, but I do think it might be a good idea to establish a policy moving forward that in order for people to get paid for time off work, they have to use their sick or vacation days.
Well, that's why I'd like to ratify what the mayor enacted, saying that that was authorized. If we agree to that on the council, that it was fine. But going forward, that if any more days were, because we're out of this, and right now it's an easier topic to talk about because everything's not so crazy. So if we can talk about that in the future, I'd say that should be a future bargaining item to discuss.
I don't have any doubts about that.
That's just my,
We can sit down with the FOP, the IBEW, and see if we can come up with a plan. You know, many cities have addressed this a couple different ways with companies. Some companies, when they're, that have their employees interact with the general public, who may or may not be doing the best way to prevent the spread of this virus. There's a number of things we can do to take care of our employees. I think we have an obligation to, and we also have an obligation to the residents to do it right. I don't have a problem. I think it's a good idea. Let's come up with a plan, and let's see how we can get it done. I'm sure the FOP and the IBW would be more than willing to sit down and try to negotiate something.
I think that'd be a great idea. The question is, what do we do in the meantime? Because right now, there's a gray area to where you put out a statement that employees can have 3 days off for COVID, but the council didn't necessarily agree to that. So what do we do in the meantime until we get together with the FOP? That's what I'm asking essentially.
Well, I think there's a couple things we can do. This isn't reinventing the wheel either. Those employees that may have run out of sick leave and have come down with COVID, we can give it to them in advance, and instead of getting 12 days at the end of their first year or at the beginning of the fiscal year. If they use 6, they would only get 6. That would be an option. One of the things that you have to remember, and you don't want to do, you don't want somebody coming to work that's sick. That's sick. If you got a symptom, stay home. Stay home. And I think that's what we did back in the first of the year. That's how we worked our way through this thing. We can get invented. You know, our people deal with a lot of situations in here. They in the clerical office, you know, we've got fiberglass barriers. People come in through there. Before we were wearing masks when we waited on somebody. But excuse me, in the real world, and I was probably more concerned about the police than the residents. Our residents have been very good to do the proper safety when they were doing business on our employees. But a lot of times our police officers are put in situations where they're not dealing with, what am I trying to say, upstanding citizens,
Agreeable people.
agreeable people, however you want to say it. I think they're at risk more than anybody. But I think we need to come down, sit down with the two locals and come up with a plan that's fair and equitable. I think we can do that if we take a common sense approach.
I think there's two solutions. I think one is, I like the idea of letting them borrow against what they're gonna have at the end of the year during their first year, since they don't have any accrued sick time. Another option going forward that we can think about is when we renegotiate these contracts, is go to a monthly, hourly sick time accumulation instead of doing it at the end of the year. So for example, 1 month, maybe you get 8 hours sick time or 12 hours sick time after 1 month and have that keep going forward from there, so it's a monthly benefit instead of doing it at the end of a year. Does that make sense? That way,
It does, it's gonna be difficult for the clerk's office, I think, Terry, to implement that, but
yeah, that's,
Isn't that what they do now? The difference is they don't start accruing it though until after the first year. Isn't that how it works?
They don't get any credit.
They don't
till
get
after
any
they've
credit
been
towards it
12
at all.
and
months.
I understand what Dom's saying. That puts us in a bad spot. You don't want people sick coming to work. I mean,
No, I-
it's just not a good.
I get it.
Doing COVID has proved that even more so now, where we're realizing that this person who came to work all the time or school when they were sick, it probably wasn't the best thing to do.
Well, that's why I agreed. I said, you know, you gotta make you have to make a decision. You made the decision the best you could, and I don't have an issue with that. My concern is going forward, because right now we're 3 months, we're at the end of March. We're 3 months in, quarter of a year, and we haven't come up with a permanent solution for it. Now granted, COVID seems to be on the decline, thank God. But that doesn't mean it's not gonna rear its ugly head again, and I mean, this is taxpayer money that's being cost. I just don't think I don't think it's a great policy. It's a great policy when you have an emergency situation, but not a great policy to stay to the whole time.
I would think, common sense wise, if we approach our two labor unions about doing a side letter of agreement or an MOU on borrowing sick leave during that first year, that would solve all of our problems.
I would agree.
And it wouldn't cost us any more money. So, something to think about.
Let's, let me contact the two unions and see if we can't get a joint meeting and move from there.
Sounds good.
Next on the agenda, number 9, discussion on adult entertainment allowed within the city of Oglesby. In talking with Pat, we, first of all, let me clarify. There's no, there's nobody that did anything wrong. There's been no violation of an ordinance. But we do have an ordinance, and I have some concerns about this. So Pat, you want to explain the ordinance that we do have?
You have an adult use ordinance that's codified at 5.92. It specifies certain establishments that would need to apply for permits to operate. They would be adult bookstores, adult entertainment cabarets, which do not include bars, adult motion picture theaters, adult novelty stores, adult use stores, body shops, or model studios. And then they're only allowed, if they are granted the permit, to places that are not within 500 feet of another adult use, are not within 3,000 feet of a residential zoning district, are not within 3,000 feet of an existing school or religious assembly or cemetery. The problem is, it does not include bars, which is where I understand the problem might have occurred. So you could easily adopt your adult, or modify your adult use ordinance to include a definition for taverns and bars. And so if they wanna have this kind of entertainment there, they would have to apply to get a permit to allow those events to occur, and they would not be allowed under your zoning code within those feet of those certain kinds of establishments.
So 3,000 feet, that's pretty much everywhere, right?
Yeah,
'Cause
effectively,
residential,
yeah.
I don't know where the hell you're gonna be at.
And that was a decision that was made by you guys or the planning commission or somebody when they adopted the new land development code, because those are codified in that code. Your adult use ordinance just doesn't include a bar in that definition, which is, I think, where the fallback is.
Is that a new addition to the land development code? Like that, because I know the land development was redone like 3, 4, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Right,
That didn't exist before then?
I have no idea,
Oh,
It was a
but it's in there
different,
now.
different
Jason.
ordinance.
okay.
This would be similar to what LaSalle and Peru have.
Correct.
Is theirs at 3,000 feet, like this one?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what their footage is. Andrew gave me some copies of them, but I haven't read through them all, Terry. But I think they might be less, but your zoning code would have to be changed. And that would take a hearing before the planning commission to do that. Whereas you guys could simply modify your ordinance for adult uses to include a tavern. And then they would be stuck with those footage requirements under the land development code. But I think some of these were more like 500 feet, if I remember what Andrew was telling me.
So I haven't seen this adult use thing.
Where do they draw the line? That's gonna be my burning question
That-
here.
all right, I'll let you tackle that one then. If you want to jump in, that's my question.
You gotta read the ordinance. Let us know how it goes here.
Well, yeah,
I'm sure that if I understand the
Oh.
Illinois code, complete nudity is in violation.
Correct.
I can believe that one, Tom. I'm sorry.
Okay, be funny.
Do you want me to read the definition to you, Don?
Maybe it'd be better.
Less than completely and opaquely covered human genitals, pubic regions, buttocks, and female breasts below a point immediately above the top of an areola, or human male genitals in a discernibly turgid state, even if opaquely covered. That's the way that most of these all read.
That's so,
It just doesn't apply to bars in your case.
but I don't think that would,
So my question is, even if you were to make that, say, to apply to bars, that wasn't part of the violation anyways, right? It still wouldn't have violated anything, because from my understanding, I don't want to go for whatever you just read, but there was none of that going on from my understanding. Is that accurate?
That is my understanding.
I don't know what the word
That is my
turgid means,
understanding,
though.
that is my understanding as well, except that it was within 3,000 feet of a residential district, blah, blah, blah.
But if it doesn't qualify as the items, then the 3,000
They
feet
have to
doesn't
get a
make.
permit to even have this event occur there, and you can deny the permit because it's within 3,000 feet of a residential area.
I agree with that. I understand that, but if the things that they were doing there didn't fall under those guidelines in the first place, would it even apply?
I think it would, because they need a permit to even go this far, Jason, is what I'm
You
telling
need a permit to have it.
to have these kinds of events.
No, but I get.
To
what
have an
you're saying,
event with
Jason.
full nudity, but
Yeah.
from my
No.
understanding is that
No,
didn't
you
exist.
can't have full nudity, even with a permit, Jason. I don't know
What
what.
did you
read then? I don't know what plan you're looking at, but,
well, not legally.
yeah, not legal. So the question is whether you want this to occur at bars, in my opinion, and if you don't want to encourage it, then I think you need to add the definition of a bar to your adult use ordinance, and you need to make them jump through the permit application process for that to occur.
I think there's some confusion on when you say to allow it to occur. What exactly is it? That's where my confusion is, because there's a
Well,
difference.
what it amounts to, you can't, with this ordinance, by modifying the ordinance, you can't have, somebody come in and dance, take off their clothes, and just have a G-string on.
Essentially, that's it, Don.
I don't want to be the sailor that tackles this question. Does anybody else want to jump on this one? You know, when I was a younger man, I've been to a lot of different places, and different places had different rules of different things, whether there'd be full nudity or not full nudity and stuff like that. And
I think you're gonna bury yourself.
yeah, I think so too.
Cully, you're right.
Yeah, just let it go.
I think we should move on.
I think we should all think about it here.
I was gonna say, you
Figure it
guys
out.
will need to make a decision and let me know if you wanna do anything.
Okay.
We can easily amend the ordinance.
Okay. Let's go to number 10, discuss the status of Columbia Street water line.
So I don't have a whole lot to, I'm not sure who put this on here, but, so Columbia Street is looking to get repaired by the state. I was able to delay them for about a 2-year process, because about 2.5 years ago, we put in for that extremely large grant. And those results were supposed to be out 2 years ago. And there is delay. I think NCICG is getting sick and tired of me contacting them every month, trying to get an update of where we're at on that. So I tried to delay them as long as I could from getting the overlay to the road done, because the goal was to get the water line completely replaced, and then the state would come in and do the road. So I was not able to delay them any further. They're gonna be they're actually starting, I believe, on the ADA ramps right now, and they're gonna start making cuts and doing stuff as early as beginning of April. So, what does that mean for the water line? The water line is still the same as it is. We haven't had a break in a little while. I'm worried what's gonna happen, though, the moment they start doing maintenance on that road, because there's about 26 to 28 breaks along that water line. I don't have a good answer for that. It's about $2.4 million to fix that water line, of which we did put a grant in for from the state and never heard back.
How big is that main?
8-inch.
Okay.
But it's an incredible amount of length is part of the issue. Is it 3/4 of a mile? About that? Yeah, it's 2.4 million to get it all that fixed. So that's why we had $800,000 worth of, the grant actually included 3 things technically, if you want to get technical, but essentially Walnut, which was $800,000, and Columbia, which was $2.4 million, and we had an $800,000 stake in this. I've just been waiting for it, and I think Tommy and I talked about it, there might have been a difference of opinion on it, but if we would have got 2 years ago this grant to come back and said denied, we would have at the very least had a discussion if we would go out for bond for the 2.4 million water line fix. But I think that ship is sailed, because we've been waiting on the grant for so long. So I don't have a great answer for it.
I put this on just because Illinois gives out grants, they don't pay them, and they don't even pick them out now, so that's why I brought it up. We don't really need to bank on them anymore, is how I feel.
We've been waiting for a $132,000 grant that they say we got to repair our fire hydrants. If we start repairing it, the grant money gets reduced.
Yep. So that's why the only fire hydrants that's been fixed in the city are the ones that are absolutely critical.
Yeah.
So right now, there's no areas where there's not coverage, but there's still damaged fire hydrants. But at least there's coverage.
Well, they say we're gonna get it this year.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Checks in the mail, it's on its
Well,
way.
so we set aside, we even had a resolution to set aside $800,000 to match that grant. That $800,000, the moment they come out with this grant denied that we get, then we can move forward on Walnut. I'm more actually concerned about Walnut than I am Columbia. Columbia is an inconvenience. It looks terrible. We have to cut into a road. It's inconvenient. But Walnut, when that breaks, that shuts down the city. That's where my bigger concern is. That's an actual functional problem where we gotta start calling schools, and the schools gotta close and send people home early, and those are the things that I want to avoid. So I look forward to the day that this grant will actually come through. Whether it's approved or denied, we're ready to take action.
Okay, I think we can move on. Discuss gaming fees increases. Right now, we get, what, $50?
$50 a machine. The legislature changed that law and said you can collect up to $250 a machine.
And
You
if,
may see most other municipalities have hopped on the bandwagon and are increasing their fees. And you can go anywhere from $0 to $250. Most municipalities are going to the maximum of $250. Each bar owner can only have a maximum of 5 machines, so the maximum you'd be collecting from them is $1,250.
It's 6 now, yeah.
So I'm looking at a gaming report for the establishments in your town, and there are very few that are bringing in less than $100 grand. One of them, Love's, is almost 700,000. The operator gets roughly a third of that money. So they're all bringing in a pretty good chunk of change, is what I'm here to tell you, I guess. But the decision is yours.
And can we separate the bars from the truck stops or not? Because they have different rules and they.
Yeah,
run
they
longer.
have more machines. Truck
Yeah.
stops can have more machines, Jason. Excuse me. Sorry, Tony. I honestly don't know whether you can separate them. I'd need to look at that statute,
Okay.
I guess. But if you wanted to make a motion to separate them, I'd certainly be
Yeah,
glad to
I'd
look
prefer
into
we
that.
separate them.
Yeah, I would tend to doubt you could, honestly.
Okay.
I think it's just across the board, so many per machine.
Okay.
So you're at $50 a machine now.
so that $10,000, roughly, if my math is pretty close.
The question is whether you want to change it. That's where you are.
Well, I think we ought to raise it
Yeah.
with that kind of money.
I'm just gonna bring up 2 things. You guys wanna go straight to the max is my first one, and my second one is, if we get COVID again and Illinois shuts them down for 9 months like they did the last time, what's gonna happen?
Your data that you have, is that including this last year as well with the COVID stuff? Or is that pre?
This is the last year. So this is through
What was it?
December
Do you have-
21st.
We were
December.
COVID opened that whole year, I think.
Do you
now,
have
though.
pre-COVID too then?
Didn't print pre-COVID, but I'm dealing with current numbers,
Okay.
Jason, but
Well, I'm just curious if you're saying the lowest, even the lowest establishment we had made or brought in 80,000 for it, and that's including COVID time? I'm curious what it was when we get out, I mean, that seems high.
yeah, I do have to say that MJ's didn't bring that in, but it's my understanding they've been closed.
Mhm.
So they really didn't bring in much money.
I understand that some of these establishments with these gambling machines help them keep them open, but we've got to take a look at,
And our municipalities near us have already raised theirs to 250, is that correct?
everybody has.
Almost everybody has that I've seen in the paper. So everybody's just trying to grab for whatever monies they can get to improve their coffers.
I think we should hold off on this at least until next meeting, so maybe we can talk to some of our business owners and see what their feelings on it are, and maybe do some more research for ourselves as far as what these machines are bringing in, and just look at the data more.
Don't have a problem with doing that. Let's move on to number 12 then. Status of unkept properties. We've got about 3 or 4 properties. This is Funnison out there on Columbia. She's been a saint, and we haven't been able to resolve that. We've got a property on North Columbia. We've got this lot at the end of Florence Street that we need to do something. The individual that owned it has died. I don't know where it's at. Some of these, are we to the point in order to clean it up that we condemn the properties and clean it up and then turn around and try to resell it for,
Well, that's what we're trying to do in the Butkus situation, and that gets bogged down in court for a long period of time, Dom. That's the problem with it. You do have some ordinances, but they're generally kind of a nuisance ordinance, where you can't do things on your property, or, you know, the building inspector can send you a letter and give you so many days to correct it, and then if you don't do something about it, they can just write you a ticket every day. That's kind of where you are. You do not have what I would call a property maintenance code. You do have a dangerous building code, which is what we're using with the Butkus property. And you do have a residential rental property nuisance prevention code. And you have general nuisances, but you don't have a property maintenance code, which specifies certain things about water heaters have to be operating, you know, foundations have to, you know, roofs have to be good, porches have to be good. It specifies exactly how the condition of a property has to be maintained, and then sets forth a procedure to correct that if that code is not met. So if you want my personal opinion, I think the city needs to enact a property maintenance code.
Who enforces that code?
The building inspector,
Okay.
Are there-
usually,
are-
or the city police can do it too.
Are some of these violations that we've been discussing for a while, are they under the nuisance code at all?
There.
So what happens when, so you said like, we'll send them a fine after a period of time. What happens with that eventually? Do you just get fines
Usually,
forever?
if it's something minor, it's 15 days to correct it. If it's something major, a foundation issue or something, it's 30 days to correct it. And then if they don't correct it within that period of notification, that's when the tickets are starting to be written.
So do we have that happening right now?
We could.
No, because you
We
don't
don't.
have this
Okay.
code right now, Jason.
I thought the nuisance code though we did.
You have a nuisance code, yeah, but the nuisance code doesn't really define much, Jason. There's just not much in there. I mean, I could show it to
So
you.
you're saying there's no weight on it?
No. Any condition, it's all very wishy-washy. Any condition or use of any premises or building which is detrimental to the property of others, I mean, it just doesn't really define anything.
I thought we had ones in there about like the grass, and that way we send letters to them.
That's probably something specific down in one of the definitions going forward, but there's nothing for, you know, to deposit or leave ashes, trash, broken articles, junk, garbage, refuse, or waste. There's something like that on there, but nothing about the condition of the property generally itself, the building, you know, which is where a lot of these come into play. I think you need to enact a property maintenance code myself.
I'm in favor of that.
And so
Okay.
we enact it, we fine them, when they don't pay the fine, we get stuck with whatever they have kind of thing, or what happens to the house if they don't pay it, kind of?
Well, it's a lien on the house moving
Okay.
forward, so they can't ever do anything with it until it's paid. But
Okay.
there are provisions in most property maintenance codes that would allow the city to go in and start to take care of some of that stuff too,
Okay.
if they don't reply in a timely fashion, which I think might be helpful to you getting some of these corrected moving forward. Did I miss anything, Colin, you remember?
No, other than, you know, if it's a lien on the property and nothing ever happens, you can't foreclose on that lien and take the property. That's the ultimate end goal. That's what
Compared to what the nuisance code in there now is just giving them infinite number of fines.
Right.
we need something with some teeth in it so we can take care of some of these problems.
What happens if somebody is in a clear I understand you're saying the nuisance code's wishy-washy, but let's say somebody's in clear violation of the nuisance code, and we end up just sending them fines. What happens with those fines eventually? Does that turn into a lien on a property or no?
Yeah, can. Any monies they owe the city, Amy gets requests all the time for properties being sold, and they wanna know, you know, what they might owe the city, and that would be added on that list.
Well, I'm wondering if we need to develop a whole new code, or what if we correct some of those issues that's wishy-washy on the nuisance code? Could that solve our issue though too?
I think you need to go farther than
Okay.
that, Jason.
Okay.
I really do. I think you need to develop a enact a comprehensive development code.
So what would
Do
be
we
the,
need to go to the planning commission?
I don't think so.
Arizona.
I think it's something, I think it's something that the council can enact on.
Okay. Let's move forward with it. Discuss 2002 ambulance that will need to be replaced in the near future.
Yeah, so our ambulance department is running 3 ambulances, and they do a lot of transfers as well. I don't know what capacity they're using this 2002, but it's got 254,000 miles on it. I was kind of talking to Jason in a sidebar the other day. I'd like to see us get on some sort of a program where we're buying an ambulance every 6-7 years, so that way an ambulance is never older than 21 years old or 18 years old, depending on what your span is, and then it's never a huge cost. Like right now, we're running a 2015 and a 2017, so within 2 years, we bought 2 ambulances. And that's just too close together, in my opinion. I'd like to see us get somewhere where we're going a 2022, and then we don't buy another one till
27.
28, 29.
Staff vehicle rotation,
I know we've definitely talked about it, and there was
we talked about that, 'cause we bought
in a perfect
vehicles
world
for
plan, but I don't know if it
some of
actually
the
happened.
So you're saying we have a 2002, a 2015, and a
That
2017?
is correct.
So the 2017 replaced something that was older than a 2002, in other words?
Yes, that would be my
Yeah,
understanding.
I remember us talking about this about a year or two ago, and I thought we tried to establish a rotation for all these already.
Yeah.
I mean,
There's
these
something
emergency
written down.
vehicles shouldn't be getting too far over 20 years old.
And we were talking about how they should use the oldest one for all the transfers, because then we can keep the new ones new.
Yeah, I remember something about that.
Well, the problem is you guys are talking about using the oldest one for all the transfers, but, you know, that's the one where you had the highest likelihood of an accident happening too, a lot of times, because you're traveling the farthest.
Or breakdowns.
Or
You have-
breakdowns, exactly, yep. Which is never a good thing when you're hauling somebody
When you're
pretty
hauling
sick.
somebody in an
You've got
ambulance, yeah.
that, you got that ambulance committee. Would that be a good subject
Yeah, I'll
for
bring that up to him, but I wanted the
committee
council to be
to,
aware that, I don't think we need to act anytime real soon, but I want you guys to keep in the back of your mind that, hey, this is aging, and at some point, we're gonna have to confront the elephant in the room and pull
Yeah.
me up on an ambulance, at least a chassis.
So I agree with what you're saying when you're talking about a good even rotation. So the problem is, it sounds like we got one in 2015, 2017, and if we bought a third one, that means we have all 3 ambulances within 7 years. You know what I mean? So we're just kicking a problem that's gonna be in, 15
I
years for the
understand that.
city.
That's,
I know.
yeah, it's not a good situation. Oh geez, well, if you do a remount, you just get a new chassis and put the box on the back of the new chassis, you're probably looking at hundred and something thousand, probably 100,000. But if you buy a new ambulance, you're probably looking closer to 200, I would guess nowadays. Maybe more. I haven't spec'd out an ambulance in a long time, so
well,
I don't know what they're running.
I would be expecting a recommendation from the ambulance board.
All right, 10-4.
Guess they're gonna say they want one.
Pardon?
Guess they're gonna say they want one, but.
Did-
Maybe the option is, instead of buying a whole new one, maybe, like you're talking about, maybe the modification version would be something that we could do, because that'll help gap that distance to give us more of a spread at some point between new ones.
Well, I mean, or we could look at something used too. I mean, I'm not opposed to that.
2012 would be 10 years newer, Jason.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I mean, like you said, though, getting something to where you have that 7 year separation
that's
between each
ideal.
one would be the good plan to go with. So in that case, maybe getting something that is a few years older than the 2015.
What do you want, a 2016?
Well, like, I think Tommy
Now you
said
got a
something.
2015, 16, and 17?
2012 is at least, 10 years old now, so you get a little
I
separation
don't
on
know
them.
that you're gonna find a 2012, that's probably worth remounting a box on, but we'll get together with the ambulance board and we'll come up with some recommendations for the council. I just wanted you guys to be aware of it, that I think we're gonna do something at some point.
You go down to the next item is discuss line items for the 22-23 fiscal year.
I don't have, so in the last appropriate, are you talking about appropriations budgets versus line item budgets, what you want to talk about there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I know that's one of the topics that I brought up when we first got in here, because I was surprised to know that we do an appropriations budgets, that if you look at the appropriations budget, technically, if every department spent their maximum they were appropriated, we'd be 2 million over. I mean, believe me, more than anything, my department has a lot of flexibility in what we have to spend every year, so I understand the value in appropriations, but I think we need to have a combination of both just for smart spending. Like, for example, this current fiscal year that we're in, I had a lot of things added to the appropriations budget because I thought we were gonna get it approved and done by now. Like, for example, the second feed, the extra transformer that we needed, and we didn't do any of that yet. So there's an incredible amount of money that's left in the appropriations budget that we're probably not gonna get to at the end of the year. So I still think a good idea would be to approve an appropriations budget early, and then within a couple months after the appropriation budget is done, a line item budget to be done. I don't know.
But
Say
would
that
there be
again,
any?
You wanna do both?
So I think both would be helpful. So,
But which one would we follow and which one wouldn't matter then?
Yeah, that's,
It's gonna be my question to you, because I'm guessing the line item one wouldn't matter.
no, so here's the thing. So when do we approve the I always thought this was strange. When do we approve the appropriation budget? It's like June or July, right?
In the first quarter of the year, the first quarter of the fiscal year, so it's gotta be done by the end of July.
It's done by then. So normally it's like June or July sometime that we do it, right? But technically, when did the fiscal year start? May 1st. So we approve the appropriation budget essentially 3 months after
Yeah.
the year began.
You're approving an appropriation ordinance, Jason.
Ordinance, sorry.
It's confusing to confuse the words appropriation and budget. 'Cause
Correct.
They're two completely different things.
And Jeroni corrected me on that too. I apologize.
You can have
I have
one
not
or
learned.
the other, you don't need both.
Yeah.
Most towns do appropriation ordinances, which are simply an authority, a roadmap for you to be able to spend money during the year. Most towns do them at about 1.5 times what they anticipate, so they're always authorized to spend what might come up during that fiscal year. A budget's much more restrictive, and maybe that's why you wanna head in that direction, Jason.
We'll be voting at once a month on something then if we do the budget. And then we have a derecho, we're screwed, just saying.
I think it's a lot to ask for department heads to do an appropriations. I think it's a lot more cut and dry when you have a line item type budget. That's just my opinion. That's what I'm used to working with, though.
Yeah, that's why I was surprised when I got in. I go, we do what? There's a lot of flexibility there. Now, and don't get me wrong,
Why
I
don't
understand.
we really strive to work, to go to a line item budget and do our best to make it work?
I think this is something
And
you
it's gonna
should
be a learning curve.
talk to your auditors about and just see what they suggest about it. Cause there's gonna be a trend, and usually they would suggest you run them in parallel for a couple of years until you get comfortable with using the budget before you maybe get rid of the appropriation process. But I can't tell you I know of too many municipalities that run strictly on a budget.
And the ones I'm thinking of are in the suburbs, and they're gonna spend it. If they don't, they won't get that money next year, is what.
And
When
that
I
does-
sell my
that does
equipment-
happen, Tommy, you are absolutely
When I sell
right.
my equipment, like, they're calling me right now, because I can get my machines, and what they were buying, they can't get. So like, if we don't spend it, we won't get it next year.
I can't-
Literally is what I get
I can't
from
tell you how many
60% of the people.
golden toilets are on USS Nimitz right now
Yeah,
because of stuff like
exactly. You gotta
that.
spend
I
it.
know exactly what you mean.
That's my
You
issue
are
with the
absolutely
budget.
right. I do agree with you there.
Why don't we set up a meeting with
Hopkins and Associates.
Hopkins and try to get this thing moved forward? When you're not in the Southland.
Yeah, when I'm here.
Update on fire department 1992. Yes.
Yeah, so this is their tender, which a tender is basically just a big water tank. It actually is a 3,000 gallon tank on a chassis that they use for rural fire protection primarily because the city has their own water system. So I've been digging into this, and I found out that we in fact do have a fire protection board of trustees, and I was able to make contact with 2 of the members. I'm gonna try to set up a meeting with them. I know they have some, I think they have some reserved funds maybe in a CD. I'd like to talk to them about getting some money from that. But what I'll need from the city is probably some of that money that we get for fire protection to maybe be committed to this chassis. So I think we get like $15,000 a year for fire and $15,000 for ambulance from the fire protection district. So whether we want, whatever we want to commit to that, I think the tank is fine, all they need is a chassis, and we're looking anywhere for probably 60 to 85,000 for a new chassis. What they're using now is an old 1992 Ford. It used to be a Ryder Semi. It was a fifth wheel, and they converted it into this chassis for the tank, and they took the fifth wheel assembly off it and welded stuff together, and it's not a good scenario, really. But again, I really think this liability falls back on the fire protection district, so I don't think we should commit city funds to it. I think we should be looking to the fire protection district funds in order to fund this project. But just wanted to update you on it and let you know what's going on with it.
Next on the agenda item is intergovernment agreement with IVCC for a school resource officer at the college, full-time.
This ball's in my court, Dom. You and Terry both contacted me about it and gave me a copy of a memorandum of agreement that I think maybe Mike had prepared that kind of summarizes the agreement with the college. So I'm in the process of trying to prepare that intergovernmental agreement, get it approved by the college's attorney, and then we can adopt it as the board.
Okay. And we haven't heard anything back on the city's proposed electric rate proposal to the college. We've made them a 5-year proposal that would save them $550,000 in electric rates. They would have to switch to the city of Oglesby, and Ameren would have to agree. They haven't responded yet, but I'm sure that they will at some time. Next one is discuss letter of GTI asking for donations toward a thermal imaging camera.
So the fire department's in need of actually 2 thermal imaging cameras, and I kind of thought it was a good idea to reach out to some of our bigger business, see if they'd make a donations toward the purchase of one of them. So I sent a letter to the HR department at GTI, and she passed it on to their division that deals with donations, and I haven't heard anything back yet. So hopefully, I think the cost of that is around $8,000. So I'm optimistic that GTI will at least give us something towards the purchase of one of those.
Okay. Discuss Malik substation upgrades.
19 and 20 kind of relate with each other. I do have some good news to report. The mayor and I have been working for a very, very long time trying to get this second feed into the city, which would bring redundancy to power supplies that we have, or some of the outages that we have that we've been affected by could have been abated because there's another line that goes right by our other substation that was operational the whole time. This has gone back and forth quite a bit, and they originally, I think up to a month or so ago, they said sure, but they wanted to give us an RDC charge that ranged from $225,000 to $450,000 a year. We've gone round robin with this for quite a while, and they kind of sort of relented on that. They have agreed that they don't need to give us an RDC charge, but that means if we ever have a problem to where we have to go back to the backup or the alternate source, that we have to make a request to make sure that the alternate power has the capacity there. And from my understanding, that's why this whole thing kind of got ridiculous and I got mad about it, is because the capacity on that line that is going by our Malik Road substation, the city would have to expand 6 times its size right now before that capacity would be exhausted. So that shouldn't be an issue. So right now where we're at, and so both these relate to each other, it's with the engineers right now. They're looking at the best ways that we can possibly come to an agreement. They came out with an option where they said if the city bought a Viper switch, which I just got educated about this, a Viper switch is something that they can control from their side to turn on or turn off to control the flow of electricity. that's one of the options. I want our engineers to take a look at stuff to see what the best options for Oglesby would be, and then see if we can get that approved. So hopefully, in the next few months, I'll have something actually that we can put up. I know we put aside $1.5 million in our appropriations budget that I will not probably touch this year because of that. Because that would include possibly of a new transformer. Transformers are anywhere between $400,000 and $600,000 as well, if we wanted to expand Malik Road Substation, which we would want to. Because GTI, with their current expansion, we are hitting about the max capacity that we can do at Malik Road Substation. And of course, we never want to be at the max capacity because we always want to have capacity left over for another business to come in or a factory or something like that. So I want to make sure that the city is expanding large enough to make sure that we can expand with it. Any questions about all that
How long
stuff?
does it take to get a transformer right now?
That's a great
So
question.
it was like 9 months when
If
I
you,
bought the last one.
if you remember, yeah, it was our very first meeting when we sat here, is when did we go out for bid or approve the bid? I think we went out for bid for it. And by the time the bids came back and everything, it took, you're correct, it took 9 months, and that was
Yeah.
prior to everything. So,
And now prices go up every 90 days.
And so,
and so is the time.
next question, can we buy the substation or transformer with, even if we don't tap on, even if it doesn't work with the Ameren? 'Cause I feel like we should just get it now, because we're gonna need it.
Yes.
Either way.
The answer is yes. The problem is, what exactly do we, so I'm hoping that we will have an engineering recommendation of what the best thing that they would approve. I don't want to order something that they would go, we're not going to allow to tap into that.
Yeah.
You know,
I
and then we
gotcha.
then we got a problem. So I want to make sure that we get something that we can get approved and something that, we already have some ideas out there. That's why I know the range was 400,000 to 600,000, but that was, 5-month-old data, so who knows now. But yeah, the moment we get something, I'd like to get something on order. I mean, GTI's expansion that they're doing right now, we ordered the transformers about 3 months ago, and we still have a 3-month wait to get those. And these are small transformers. These transformers are only like 40 grand each. We're not talking a $400,000 one that takes incredible amount of time. So that's the good news. So it is good news, but I don't have everything just yet, hopefully within the next month. And I've been pushing Mark and BHMG, which is our electrical engineering firm. I've been pushing them about every week for new things to design and come up with stuff. So hopefully I'll have something very soon.
The only thing I'll add to that is, we need to thank the IMA for working with us in getting our second feed. Part of this, and I can understand where Ameren is coming from on some of it. Some of the things that helped us, we've got a $38 million expansion that Ameren and ComEd are doing, just across from the fire station. With that, they'll have the capabilities, if we lose one feed, that'll automatically flop over. The second feed, that'll come from LaSalle. Ameren insists on that it'll be operated through their SCADA system. It may cause us a bit of an outage, but it'll be a hiccup compared to what we've been experiencing. And it'll improve our reliability, and that's what we need. So a lot of people have done a lot of good work on this, and we appreciate it. I think that covers about everything. Is there anything under old business?
There is one item, actually, which is all good news. If you remember, this is with the ARPA stuff, Mayor, I thought I'd talk about it a little bit. I brought up last meeting the concern I had for the motor fuel tax fund. I know I got some stares that, see how much you want to spend on stuff like that. Well, the county actually came to, and I know, Tommy, you're already thinking if I mentioned something about grants, you're like, ugh. But the county actually approached us about how we could use some ARPA funds. One of the questions the mayor and I asked is, says, what's the timeline and what is the approximate amount? Because I have things that range from 175,000 all the way up to 15 million that I could put a grant in for. Obviously, we're not going to get a $15 million grant when they only got 22 million. So what's an appropriate amount? And they came back to us a few days later and said about 300,000 would be about the right amount for us to put in. Well, I remember I told you guys it'd be about 300,000 for for the Clark Street sewer separation project. I contacted Chamlin's, they were able to put together an engineering estimate. The total detailed estimate came out to $313,000. So it's about perfect. So we just got the application in this morning. I believe the clerk started filling it out. We already have something, work with NCICG with helping us write a letter and details up, so we're looking to put in for that. So my goal is to put in for the storm sewer separation project on Clark through the county, through the ARPA funds, and then that should allow us to have more than enough funds to get all the things that we wanted to get done through the motor fuel tax, solving that problem that we talked about last time.
It's federal money.
It's federal money, but they already have 11 million of it right now in hand.
I'm not worried about the federal government, they pay, so, just bringing that up again.
Well,
So-
I
so the
tell you,
state-
I tell you what, we need to thank Dave Torres for working with us to, kinda
Yeah.
get us into that pipeline.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm very disappointed when it comes to state so far when it comes to grants. I have no reason to doubt the county yet, so
Okay.
we'll have to see.
And
One-
aren't they doing when's the bridge? Wasn't there something, aren't we on a list for the bridge too?
We're on the list.
We're on the list.
Okay,
I can't say we're on the list, but
Okay.
apparently we're not number one.
I'm in
Public-
the circle on how they handle that grant money. So one thing that I know they're really looking for is how the cities are going to be using the money that they were allotted for themselves from the ARPA funds. So I don't know if on the application they have something that asks that, but I don't know if we've said how we're gonna spend, cause we got what, 400 and, in total? 400 and something thousand? 432. So do we have any idea what we're spending that $432,000 on? And we got our first phase of that, and then the second half comes, in September, right? August?
Our first one was in September, second one, they say summer of 22.
Summer 22, okay. So that's, I do know they're really looking hard at that, so something to think about.
Well, I will tell you, so I'll share the write-up with you. I think it's a pretty good write-up. But the write-up goes into detail about why it's such a good project to be used for funds for Oglesby, because not only does it affect all the residents in Oglesby, but it solves the EPA mandate that we're on for storm sewer separation. And number three, it extends more than just the city of Oglesby because it affects the environmental concerns in the Vermilion River. So that's why I think it's a great project
You don't
for
have to
the.
sell it to me, I'm on board.
I know. I'm telling you, that's what's going in the
Sold.
write-up. That's what's going in the write-up.
Okay.
Public comments, I see Greg is up there. For the record, please state your name.
Hi, everybody. Greg Stein, Oglesby, 300 block East Walnut Street, which is, I'm the guy that sent the letter into the city. I never really wanted you to read it into the public record, but if anybody wants to see it, I think you should let them read it. I don't have a problem with that.
we're gonna get FOIAs tomorrow like crazy. Continue on.
But I do think this 90-day notice that people interested in buying the lot, you made it sound like only they have to build a building on it to get the lot. There's another option in there, and also from my conversations with people that are involved in that neighborhood, that you were gonna square off the end of the lot, and so I think you ought to when you make this official at a council meeting, I think you ought to iron that out, what the boundaries are that somebody might be buying the boundary lines of this remodeled property. And whether or not they could buy it to own it as a lot, parking lot for themselves, or they have to put a building on it. And so I think you need to iron that out a little bit. And, do you want to say something, or do you want me to just keep moving on?
I think it's pretty wide open, we're just looking for any kind of proposal at this point. I don't think we've come down to you have to build a 2,000 square foot building with a half
I
acre
think you
lot
should
or anything.
stipulate that the property lines have been changed.
I don't
At
think they
least
have.
that.
They
They
haven't,
haven't
They
yet.
have not
they have
yet.
not been yet.
We have
I
talked to the
understand that.
property owner, to square that
We're
off.
talking, how many, 0.06 acres, what, like,
we're talking.
like 200 square feet?
It's such a minor issue.
6 feet, okay.
What you're talking about is
the driveway that came out from the connected, are you still thinking about leaving the pass-through all the way from the Walnut Street to the alley?
Currently.
You're currently thinking?
Haven't,
I think you
to
should
be
say
honest
that.
with you, I haven't even, thought about that,
Okay.
to make a proposal. But,
A
I'm sure,
drive-through
I'm
condition
sure
could
that
exist.
that could be, or that may not be.
Okay, all right. You ready to move on? Okay.
If you are, I am.
The mayor's gentleman agreement on COVID situation, I think you all should honor that and not backtrack and pedal backwards and make them, and work out the future. And when do the days reset this year? You mentioned a fiscal year, is
May
that like May
1st.
1st?
May
They
1st.
get more days for next year?
Right,
Okay.
It's not anniversary, it's May 1st.
And these special COVID times and all your guys' chat tonight, you could be running up labor costs in the future if this COVID thing kind of drops off and isn't as big of a problem in the future as it has been the last 2 years.
We hope not, and we want you to buy your 50/50 tickets for Fun Days.
I don't gamble. So sorry.
Me neither.
I usually make a donation down there, though.
We will take any donation, Greg.
So, and with Columbia Street, what happens if a water main breaks while they're chiseling up the road? What happens then?
That's a
Have
big
you
problem.
thought about that?
Yeah, I've thought about it. It's, why do you think we put in a $2.4 million grant? So it's unfortunate. We haven't had a lot of breaks lately, and I fear talking about it because when they come to do the maintenance on the road, Lance is already probably sitting there going, oh, I don't even want to think about it back there. So
Well, we
I'm
better not get a bill from Universal Asphalt for all the people sitting around doing nothing, because we have to repair the waterway.
That
But anyway,
yeah.
and on the 92 tanker truck, I wonder whether or not you thought about maybe a tanker trailer, where you could drop off the trailer and then go get another trailer and keep bringing trailers to the farm.
I'm confused.
Instead of having a tanker truck, have tanker trailers and pull a trailer out there, drop it, and then go get another trailer.
Yeah, that's not typical, normal tactics for firefighting.
Okay.
There is one department I know of that runs a fifth wheel tender like you're talking about. I think the problem you'll have is getting it down some of the country roads and the areas it has to go through, some of these rural bridges and stuff like that. The posted weight limit's not gonna allow for that.
Commissioner reports?
I have nothing to report tonight.
Got nothing, Mayor.
Cully?
Nothing tonight.
Just a reminder that chipping will be 2 to 6 May, and one of the first weeks in May, I don't know the week just yet, but we'll be doing hydrant flushing. As we get closer, I'll let you know. That's all I got.
I don't have anything. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Augubright.
Aye.
Cullinan.
Aye.
Curran.
Aye.
Udis.
Aye.
Rivara.
Aye.
Yeah, I thought I'd stop you before you buried yourself. I know where you're headed, buddy. You were just too involved, buddy.
All right, Don, let's go to.
Good idea if I sent this to you guys, or